Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 28th December 2024. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we will look into some important contributions made by Dr. Manmohan Singh in our economy with a special focus on the economic reforms that were taken in year 1991. Then in our second topic, we will look into the state of drug abuse in India, some possible reasons and solutions. Then in our simplified section, we will take up 5 articles and we will try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers, so you can have a look on them also, and stay tuned. So our first topic is the LPG reforms that were taken in year 1991. The context of this topic is that, as you would be already aware, that Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was our former Prime Minister as well as the Finance Minister and the Governor of RBI, has left for his heavenly abode, and he was the chief architect of the economic reforms, which particularly this LPG policy which came in 90s and which transformed India's economic trajectory. That is, the earlier economy which was inward looking, the economy in which the GDP growth rate was very minimal, around 3% or through 3.5% constantly since decades, and the other issues like high inflation, etc. And these issues were actually addressed by this LPG policy, where rather than being an inward looking, we became an outward looking economy with a greater integration with other parts of the world. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, planning, mobilization of resources and liberalization. And this topic, liberalization and LPG reforms, already there has been more than 30 years since it has been taken, but still it is very significant for your exam. There are questions that are coming in the mains examination as well as the prelims examination from this topic. So it becomes very important for you to have a proper understanding of this topic. So why Dr. Manmohan Singh was the person who was chosen to be the architect of these reforms? Because of the dynamic career that he had. He had earlier acted as the advisors in various ministries, and then he was also the governor of RBI from September 16, 1982 to January 14, 1985. Then he has been the Union Finance Minister from June 21, 1991 to May 15, 1996, and this was the period of this LPG reforms. And he had helped in shaping India's transition from a centrally planned, highly regulated and largely closed economy to an open in terms of trade between India and the rest of the world, liberalized in terms of regulation and the restrictions that were earlier imposed by the government, by the central bank on the various establishment, manufacturing facilities, etc. that are working in Indian economy. And focus was on market economy, that whatever the things, whether it is the exchange rate or the other restrictions, that should be determined more by the market, and there should be less influence, less interference by the government as well as by the central bank. So this focus, if you look into that, why we have gone for this LPG reforms, because of the crisis that actually came in late 90s, in the early phase of the 1991. What was that crisis? That crisis was the balance of payment crisis. Why it came? Because of the dwindling foreign exchange reserves, which was only much sufficient to cover few weeks import coverage. What happens? Let's suppose this is India, and there is a country, let's suppose Iran, Iraq or any other country. Okay. Now let's suppose these are the countries who are giving crude oil to India, right? Let's suppose these are the countries who are giving crude oil to India. Why India is importing crude oil from these countries? Because India do not have sufficient resources of the crude oil, and that is one of the important fossil fuel which is required in various industries, whether it is transportation, manufacturing or any other industry. So when these countries are giving us or selling us crude oil, they will obviously need money. But if India will want to buy crude oil in Indian rupees, probably they will not be ready, and especially at that point of time countries were not ready. What they were demanding? They were demanding a currency which is generally accepted in every part of world, and which is generally a currency which is not very volatile with the market. So that currency was obviously the dollar. So these countries were needing dollar. They were taking dollar from India, and then they were selling the crude oil to India. So what are the sources that India had to get the dollars? First, how can India earn dollar is, let's suppose India is exporting some of the product, like Iran, Iraq and other countries are exporting crude oil to India. So if India is, let's suppose, exporting some product like textiles, gems, jewelries, or even the food products like basmati rice, etc. So the countries which are buying these products from India, India will again say ki give us dollar, because that is what will be used to cover the imports. So exports earnings are one of the important source of the foreign exchange reserves or earning dollars. Then second is the whatever the investments that will come in India. Let's suppose there is a company which is coming with the investment, that will again come with the dollar. Then the remittances, gifts, etc. that is coming, that are the some of the sources through which we can earn the dollar. But at that point of time, our export were not very competitive, because with the high regulation, products were the cost of the production were very high, and the integration with the rest of the world was also not very good. So we were not exporting much of the products. Our exports was not very, exporting potential was not very sound. Obviously we had this policy which was inward looking, and we do not provide a proper environment for the foreign companies to come, and that's why investment were also not coming properly. So India did not have proper dollar to cover the imports properly, and that has created an issue due to which India has to give loans to Bank of England, and it has to take loan from IMF, etc. But IMF said that will give you loan if you will improve your economic policy, if you will keep the policy which was earlier focusing on license, quota and permits, if you will change it to the liberalization, privatization and the globalization. Although this was not explicitly said that these are the things that you have to do, but the condition was that ease your economy, remove the restrictions that are there, to ensure that at least some other form of investment and etc. can go in the Indian economy, and it can be more integrated with the world. So this was the backdrop of the crisis which actually led to these reforms. For example, let's suppose you people are preparing for this civil services exam. Let's suppose there is a tragedy that may unfortunately happen with some of the person. Due to that tragedy, if that particular person did not have any choice at all, so in this regard, in that case, in that particular situation, that person will anyhow clear this exam. He will give 100%. Let's suppose there is a person to whom there is a boy who likes a girl. Okay. And that girl is going to be married in 1 year, and that boy wants to marry that particular girl anyhow. The family of the girl said that only will marry this girl with you if you'll clear this exam. At this point of time, that boy do not have any choice at all. He will have to clear, and he will try his best to clear this exam. That was the situation, because India didn't have any option at all. That was the situation that led to some good things happening, and that can also happen with that particular boy also, because of the limited choices that he have. He may give his 100% to clear this exam, and he will clear, or he may clear this exam. Also, that particular condition at that point of time was that the fiscal deficit during that 1991 period was around 8.4% of GDP, which was very high, and the country was also going for monetization of deficits, which was again leading to various other issues like inflation, etc. Also, the Gulf War which happened in 1991, this has aggravated the situation, because the Iraq's invasion of the Kuwait, because that had led to supply chain disruptions, and it has led to very high prices of crude oil, and that has actually further depleted our foreign exchange reserves. Then another thing was that the disintegration of the USSR, because USSR was one of the important destination, or one of the important country from which we were importing our crude oil, and we do not have this we were not bound to buy that crude oil from Russia with dollar itself. right? So India and Russia were trading in some other currencies apart from the dollar. So there was no as such restriction of importing in dollar only with the Russia. But when Russia disintegrated, that supply of crude oil from Russia got also impacted. So due to all this situation, India did not have any other choices but to go for these reforms. Apart from that, the rise in the prices, inflation rate increased from 6.7% to 16.7% due to rapid increase in the money supply, and country's economic position became further worse. Because of the high fiscal deficit, when the money was pumping in the economy, that has further aggravated, that has further led to high inflation in the economy. And this was the condition, because what is happening, understand one thing very clearly. If there is no proper investment coming in the manufacturing sector, the cost of product is not declining, that will further lead to high cost of production and further amplify the inflation in the economy. So what India actually did, first they have liberalized the industrial policy, where the abolition of industrial license permit Raj. Earlier to do even the few small things, like let's suppose any particular manufacturing facility wants to expand, or they want to further do investment in their manufacturing facility, they have to take clearances from the government. And that is where there are some government reasoning also, that why they were focusing or they were doing these kind of things, where even for the smaller things the companies had to take the permission from the government. That we will also see that what were the reasoning of the government. So this was the first thing that was abolished with this industrial licensing permit Raj, that was abolished. Then the reduction in the import tariffs. Earlier what government wanted? That government wanted to less integrate with the other parts of the world, because government wanted to promote or in a way motivate Indian manufacturing facility that they increase their production more and more. And that is one of the area that when we will import high tariffs on the goods that are being imported from other parts of the world, that the cost of those products will be very high, then people may prefer Indian goods, and in that way Indian made goods may be motivated to produce more. The particular government amended the MRTP, that is Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, 1969. What was it? It was the first competition law which consists of laws and regulations that govern the discriminatory market practices, and it was based on the pre-liberalization and pre-globalization phases. What was this objective of this MRTP Act? Because government want to prevent the concentration of economic power in few hands and the control monopolies and prevent monopolistic restrictive trade practices. Since what had happened, understand one thing, the East India Company that came in India, also they came as an trading company, but we had a very unfortunate experience with them. Apart from that, the Indian government after independence have also seen some of the negatives of the capitalism in various parts of the world. So they did not like this idea that the private companies should be given a full free hand, because there might be a case that there may be one or two companies or one or two people who may be present all across the sector, and these people will be earning most of the profits, these people will be getting most of the money from the economy, and they will become too big that they will be also controlling other parts of the country, other components of the country, like whether it is government, judiciary and other things. Second thing was that if these people will become too big, there might be a case that the social welfare or the public welfare may be jeopardized. Because of these reasonings, this MRTP 1969 came, and government wanted that to ensure that social security protection is there. In case of market volatility, government is there to help the poor people, to ensure or to promote equality in the economy. Government should be there. So because of all these reasons, government wanted to ensure that government take a lead in increasing the production process or in various sectors of the economy. And that is why they were in a kind giving made a policy where various restrictions were placed for the private sector. But that failed miserably because of the bureaucratic apathy, because of the red tapeism that was there, because the main aim or the main benefit with the private sector or the capitalist is they focus on the innovation, because when they will innovate, the cost of production will reduce. But here in this case, in the socialist model or where government is focusing more, the bureaucratic inefficiencies takes a larger stand, and because they do not have any motivation to innovate. And that's why this particular government's approach failed miserably. And this MRTP Act 1969 was replaced with this Competition Act 2002. And here the major aim is to prevent practices that are having adverse effect on the competition and to promote a healthy and they want to ensure the freedom of trade. For example, there might be a case that 2 or 3 companies were earlier working in any one sector, but now they are thinking to merge. But in that case, there will be a monopoly. And whatever the services they will be providing, whether that will be very high, whether that will be very costly, that everyone will have to bear with that. So that government do not want to do. Also, the Narasimhan Committee report of 1991 earlier recommended some other things that government should do. First, they recommended to reduce the SLR or statutory liquidity ratio. That is the amount of the money that the particular bank has to keep with the RBI itself. The committee recommended 35%, reduce it to 25% over a 3-year period. The CRR or this government said that to reduce 25% to 10% over a period of 4 years, because the committee recommended, because of these kind of restrictions, the banks do not have proper funds to actually give it to the private sector who can actually invest back in the economy itself. Because of, if we'll reduce this much requirement which is there for SLR and CRR, then they will have more funds and they will be able to lend more to the private sector, and further private sector will be investing in the economy, which will lead to increased production in the economy. Also, the bank branch licensing policy and setting off of interest rate by the lenders were also liberalized earlier. It was more decided by the central bank itself that on what basis they will be lending, on what rate they will be lending. And even for the small things, they have to get clearances from the central bank, that is RBI, that they want to expand their branches or they want to open new branches. All these things they had to take the clearances from RBI itself. So again, in this way, they were demotivated to expand and the financial sector was taking a headwind. Then the privatization, because here the deregulation of markets happened and the banking reforms that were taken. Earlier in 1969, nationalization of banks happened and there were only few private banks, but government understood that it would be more prudent if there are some private banks also who can help in lending activities, who can help in financial inclusion. The deregulation of market should happen. It should not be overly regulated at the central level, but most of the things should be decided by the market forces itself. The number of areas which was reserved for public sector companies, that was earlier 17, they have been reduced to 8 companies only. Some of the sectors like atomic sectors, etc., has been only kept for the public sector, and slowly and gradually after 1991 it has been further lowered down in year after 2014. Also, the 80% of the industries were taken out of the MRTP Act, and now they do not have to face so much of restrictions which they had to earlier face. If you talk about the globalization, here the integration with the Indian economy with the world economy happened. The tariffs and the non-tariff barriers that were there, they were reduced to some extent. Also, it has helped in free flow of capital, technology and labor. Now the companies have that capital that they can use to increase the production capacity, also that can be used to reduce the cost of the production, and that has actually helped in creating more number of jobs in the economy. The reduction in the trade import duties that were earlier levied, because understand one thing, when we are importing some products and there is less import duty that is being available on that is being imposed on that, in a way we are helping in that product to be available to the people at affordable cost. For example, suppose this thing, let's take a very basic example. In Indian market, let's suppose the Chinese mobile phones were not permitted. Whether that, then in that case, was there any possibility that even the poor people can afford, or poor people could afford the mobile phones? Answer is it was very difficult, because cost of Nokia mobile phone, Samsung and Apple was very high, and the poor people, or majority chunk of the population, would not be able to afford that phone. But because of the low import duty or the low cost of these phones which were imported from the Chinese markets, Indian poor people could also afford these mobile phones, and that has actually helped in telecom revolution. So with the globalization, when we have reduced the trade import duties, it has actually helped in also bringing down the inflation in the economy. It has also helped in reducing the price of these products that were there. It has also allowed the direct foreign investment up to 51% of foreign equity, and removed the bottlenecks to facilitate the foreign technology agreement in high priority industries, especially in the service sector, etc. Also, the exchange rate correction, which was earlier pegged exchange rate, and it was pegged to a basket of the currencies, but it was devalued for a shorter period after 1991 to promote the exports, and then it is more of the market exchange rate, where market forces are determining the exchange rate, that what will be the value of Indian rupees in terms of majority of the currencies or in terms of dollar. So what was the impact of economic reforms? First, the positive impact is that it has helped in increased GDP growth rate, that we had around 7% of GDP growth rate, and it has been around 3.5% in preceding 3 decades. The FDI inflows in India was $97 million in 1991, and it increased to almost $81.72 billion in 2020-21 as per the data from Ministry of Finance. Also, when we are having so much of investment, it is helping in boosting industrial development, it is helping in boosting the infrastructure development, and it is leading to more and more job creation, where people are having the jobs, it is leading to improved education and health indicators. And in a way, when we were earlier focusing only on the growth, now we are coming to a case of development, where the poverty and unemployment is also decreasing in the economy with the increase in the numbers. Also, the service sector contribution, which has risen from 37.2% in 1991 to 54.2% in 2020 to 21, and this has been one of the important area that actually have helped in giving people with proper jobs. Also, if you look into in year 1991, our GDP in $1 billion was 274.84, and our global position was 17. But in 2022, our global position is 5th as per the data from IMF. So one of the reason why we have seen a increase in the GDP is because of the economic reforms. Apart from that, there has been improvement in the exchange rate. However, here it will not be that visible, because now it is more determined by the market exchange. The foreign currency reserves, okay, which was the $1.12 billion in June 30, 1991, which was only sufficient to cover a few weeks of imports. Now it is in the year 2016, it was $339.57 billion, and it is more than $600 billion in year 2024. Also, the current account deficit has also decreased significantly. It was 1.06% in 2015-16. Apart from that, the fiscal deficit and the liabilities as in ratio of the GDP has also decreased significantly. Also, if you look into the GDP per capita, that has also grown 5.8 times in last 30 years, and it has been one of the highest increase that we have seen if we compare it with other developing economies of the world as per the data from the World Bank. Also, the exports have grown 23 times, but Vietnam, China and Bangladesh have done better. But still, this much of growth in the export was very commendable, and this is again the data from the World Bank itself. So what are the issues that has been actually created, or that has actually came after these reforms, which needs the attention of the government? First is the increased inequality and the uneven distribution of the wealth. As per the data from World Inequality Report 2022, India is among the one of the most unequal nation. Top 1% of population holds 22% of national income. The job losses in the traditional sectors, for example, the artisans, okay, the handicrafts, etc., the people who were in this particular sectors, they lost their jobs because of the cheap imports that were available as a substitute of these products. The environmental degradation, we have enough data for this. The air pollution, the poor quality of air quality index that you can see in the Delhi NCR region. Why? Because of the lot of manufacturing facility or the lot of industries that came in the vicinity of the Delhi NCR. Yes, that has helped in providing the jobs. Yes, that has helped in lowering the cost of production. Yes, that has helped in improving the quality of the life in a shorter span of time, in a way that people can access now the essential services like food, clothing, etc. But it has also deteriorated our air, it has also deteriorated our water bodies, and it has further amplified the climate change related woes. And we have also seen a rise in the non-performing assets, that is NPA. NPA can be defined as the money which was the assets where the principals or the interest is unpaid for more than 90 days or due for more than 90 days. We have seen a high amount of NPAs and growth in the NPAs, especially both in the scheduled commercial bank, private banks and the public sector banks, but it has came to a significant lower position in last few years, what we have seen if we compare it with the years since 2000 till 2018. So what should be done? What should be our approach? First, we have to focus on the inclusive growth, means growth of all. Right? Here, what does it mean? That we are not only focusing on growth of rich people or well-to-do people, but even the downtrodden like farmers, women, malnutrition people who do not have access to proper nutrition, the tribal people, the people like disabled, etc. We have to focus on their growth also, so that we can have a holistic comprehensive economic growth, and that can be also called as the development. We have to promote the sustainable development, where we are not only focusing on our development but environmental consideration are also kept in mind. We have to improve the governance, where we have to provide the citizen-centric governance, means whatever the services that are being provided by the government, that is affordable, that is accessible, and that is available to the people in a time-bound manner. And we have to also strengthen the social safety nets, means that there should be a proper working condition with the workers, there should be proper wages with the people, and there should be proper the social safety benefits even after the retirements, like pensions, etc., health insurance benefits, etc. that should be provided with the people, so that they can work with their full efficiency, and in a way we can also with this help achieve our potential GDP. Also, we have to reform the agriculture sector. As of now, we have seen that the major economic force is still dependent on the agriculture itself. So our focus should be now on the agriculture sector, that how we can increase the productivity of our agriculture sector, how the farming can be made much more remunerative, so that people who are dependent on this, they also become more and more better with the increasing growth in the other sectors of the economy. Apart from this particular economic policy, Dr. Manmohan Singh have helped Indian economy manifold. Even after becoming the Prime Minister, some of the significant schemes which is playing a significant role in Indian economy is, like for example, Manrega that came, the National Food Security Act, the civil nuclear deal that was signed by the US, that was a very magnificent milestone in Indian history. So there were a lot of things that were done, but due to paucity of time, obviously we will not be able to discuss all that things. A mains practice question that you people can write from this. Our second topic is drug abuse in India. The context of this topic is that as per Delhi police, the chemical drugs have become a status symbol among the young people, which has led to increase in the demand of these chemical drugs. That chemical drugs like cocaine, okay, why? Because they are high in cost. Okay, as per the Delhi police, I don't have any idea at all. So as per the Delhi police, these are the drugs which are costlier, and now this has become a status symbol. The youth is more and more attracted towards this. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, health and government policies and interventions. As per this data from World Drug Report 2022, India has the 4th largest quantity of opium that has been seized in 2020 at 5.2 tons, and the 3rd highest amount of morphine has also seized in the same year at 0.7 tons. For example, the seizure at Mundra Port actually, okay, the seizure at Mundra Port, that was one of the highest, right? And as per this data from United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, India accounted for 7% of global opium seizures and 2% of global heroin seizures in 2019. And it is not just happening that these drugs are coming in Indian soil, but that is also impacting the youth. For example, to address the widespread issue of the drug addiction in some of the bordering states, the states which are bordering the Pakistan area, for example, states like Punjab and Jammu Kashmir. To address this drug abuse, government has set up various health centers, various rehabilitation centers. And in this regard only, the Indian Express has done an investigation, and they have come with this data that one addict walks into Srinagar's OPD every 12 minutes. Means every 12 minutes there is a one drug addict that is coming in the OPD to take help from the doctors that how they can leave that drugs. That in year 2021 to 2022, this number was almost 21,280 and new patients were 2,123, and it has increased in the year 2022 to 23, where new patients were 3,036 and 38,074 patients were coming regularly for the follow-ups. That shows the very abysmal condition of the drug abuse in India, where a lot of youth population is has gone for this drug addiction. And now this data is the reported data which is in the government's document. There is still large chunk of the population which is apprehensive of taking help from the medical practitioners, which is still shy of visiting any person from which they can take help and they can come out of that vicious cycle. So what are the reasons for this high drug abuse? First is the socio-economic factors. For example, as per this report of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment 2022, 60% of people who are drug addicts, they are from economically downtrodden background. For example, let's suppose COVID-19 came. Then it led to a lot of job losses. At that point of time, when people do not have anything, that they do not have any help, they might resort to drugs, right? Apart from that, let's suppose data from the economic survey says that out of 2 persons which are graduating, 1 person is not getting proper job because of the lack of skills that is being provided in the graduation courses, because of lack of proper updation in the curriculum, because of the mismatch between the demand of the industry and what the our graduates are having. So at that case, when these persons do not have jobs, there is economic uncertainty. These kind of socio-economic factors might lead to people going towards the drug abuse, or they may attracted towards the drug. Then the peer pressure and the social influence. As per this, again, the study done by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment in 2018, 3.8% of students aged between 13 to 17, their peers influences them towards getting attracted towards the drug addiction in urban areas. And this peer pressure plays a very important role. For example, Jamtara is a district in Jharkhand. Now, in this district of Jamtara, there were earlier only few people or few male members who were actually going for the crimes, the digital frauds, banking related frauds. And these people, very young people, have made illegal money, and with the help of that illegal money, they have bought the luxury vehicles, they have built the houses, etc. Now, with this peer motivation, more and more youth were involved in this digital fraud. And Jamtara has become very infamous for this digital and banking related fraud activities, that most of these activities were originating from this district itself because of the peer motivation, peer pressure. Or another thing happens. Let's suppose there is a person, there is a college, there is a student which has just went to the college. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, or he doesn't do anything illegal, or he doesn't do any of these kind of activities. But some of his or her friends can say that just try it once, there would not be anything. And in that case, he may be attracted toward these kind of things, and in that case, he might be further jeopardizing his future also. Also, the mental health and the self-medication, where still the stress, the depression, etc. is not considered an important part of our society, important part of our discourse which needs attention. So in this case, when these people or the persons who have lot of stress, depression, and they do not get proper care from the family members or from the health practitioners, in that case, again, they might be going for this drugs. And the self-medication, there are some people who think that some drugs can be taken without the prescription of the medical practitioners or doctors, etc. This lack of awareness further creates this issue of drug addiction. Then the geographical factors, that is also one of the important area, or that is also one of the important factor. For example, that let's suppose if you talk about the geographical factor, India is located between the Golden Crescent and the Golden Triangle. Golden Crescent consists of Iran, Afghanistan and Pakistan, and this is one such area where high production of the opium products or the drugs happens. And this Golden Triangle is again one such area. This is Myanmar, Laos, Thailand and Vietnam. And our states are sharing border with these countries, okay, and some northeastern states are also sharing borders with these countries. So it becomes India becomes one of the targets or the markets for this production which is happening, and in this regard there may be more influx of these drugs. And this low availability or easy availability of drugs, that they are cheaply available, they are readily available. I am recalling one such video in which there was a senior officer of the police department in Punjab came to one of the functions of any college in the Punjab. In that regard, he was giving some speech on that why the student should not go for the drug abuse and everything. Then one student stood from the auditorium, and that particular student said, "Sir, how can you people do not have any idea about the drug peddlers or the agents who are selling the drugs? And we just coming by just coming college, and within 15 days we get an idea that where the drugs are available and everything." So this shows that easy availability is there. Apart from that, there is lack of enforcement and lack of proper oversight mechanism also from the law enforcement officials, which again amplifies this situation. And the low conviction that is there, whether a particular peddler is being arrested, after being arrested he gets the bail, and there is very low conviction in that. And the lack of proper rehabilitation facilities, that is the bureaucratic apathies are there. Even some rehabilitation center which has been set up by the government, they are still defunct and everything. All that further creates the issue of this drug abuse, further amplifies this issue. So what should be done? What should be the way forward? How we can address this? First is there is need for improved awareness and education, that there should be nationwide campaigns on the dangers of the drug abuse. And where these campaigns should be done mostly, this should be done in the schools, this should be done in the colleges, and this should be also covering the poor people's slums, etc., because these are some breeding grounds of drug abuse. Also, we have to strengthen the law enforcement agencies, that there should be proper monitoring and enforcement to disrupt the drug trafficking networks. We need to improve the border surveillance measures, for example, bold QRT, etc., that has been implemented in several parts of our borders. That needs to be ensured that happens in all parts of our borders. And we need to expand the rehabilitation centers, because we have to focus on providing affordable and accessible rehabilitation facilities to the people, so that they can come out of this vicious cycle. Also, there is need for providing mental health support properly. For example, government is providing Telemanas facility. Okay, This kind of facilities should be promoted more. There is need for integrating mental health service into the primary health care. Okay, because until and unless society will understand that mental health support is one such important area which needs to be focused, the stress, depression, etc., these are some of the lifestyle disease which has came with the globalization, and that they need attention. The society has to understand this, and the community based programs should also be focused, where the local community needs to be involved. The NGOs, civil society organization, etc., should be involved. With the help of them and proper intervention, we can engage the families, schools and youths to help the society to get rid of this menace. Also, the policy and the legislative reforms. We already have certain laws like NDPS Act 1985. So these kind of acts, if there is a need, they can be amended to cover some of the other areas which has came. For example, the technological areas, that where sale and trade is happening under the dark net and dark web, or some other executive actions or the reforms can be made so that this issue can be addressed holistically. The drug control policies, and we can go for the evidence-based rehabilitation and prevention strategies based on the actual condition of that particular patient, that what is the attention that person needs. A mains practice question that you people can write from this topic is that you please write this question. In our simplified section, our first topic is Household Consumption Expenditure Survey. This is a survey which is done by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. And with the recent data, we have came to the conclusion that the average household spending rose by 3.5% through average 2023 to July 24 as shown by this survey. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, growth and development, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 1. Let's see what was there in the news itself to decode the news. First is that India's average household consumption spend on the per capita basis rose about 3.5% in real terms through the August 2023 to July 2024 from a year ago as per the Household Consumption Expenditure Survey. And the center said this signals a decline in the consumption inequality and a narrowing gap between urban and rural spends. First of all, few things you have to understand. What is this means? That real terms means we are calculating it based on the price which has been fixed with a base year rather than being calculated at the current prices, right? Second is that earlier there has been divergence between the rural expenditure and the urban expenditure. There has been a significant decline in the urban expenditure because of the high inflation in the economy, but it has narrowed down in the recent survey. Initial HCS finding, which was used to assess the trends in the economic well-being, estimates poverty level and update the basket and weightage of the consumer goods and services used to formulate the consumer price index that measures retail inflation were released by the Union's Finance Ministry. Because you have to understand one thing, this household consumption expenditure survey, it is being calculated based on a basket of goods and services, and this is also being used to calculate the consumer price index, because whenever we are calculating the consumer price index, it is also being calculated based on a basket of goods. So whatever the people are buying, whatever the people are consuming, the CPI tries to incorporate that in that basket itself. In real terms, average rural monthly per capita expenditure rose 3.53% over 2022-23 and grew at a fractionally slower pace, 3.5% for urban household to 6,996. And this has been consistent with the trend observed in the 2022-23. Non-food items remain the major contributor to the household's average monthly expenditure in 23-24, with about 53 and 60% share in MPC in rural and urban areas respectively, a fact sheet the survey noted. That let's see what is the data from household consumption expenditure. So the share of food items in average monthly per capita expenditure. The non-food items have a share of 53% and 60% in rural areas and the urban areas. Means in urban areas people are consuming, or people are spending more on the non-food items as compared to the food items if we compare it with the rural areas. Why? Because in urban areas people have some other facility, like People had to spend more on the transportation. People may go for some entertainment, like they can go for watching movies, etc. But if you look into the food items, one of the important component is beverages and processed food, that can again emphasize about the lifestyle changes that are happening, about the more and more consumption and demand of the ready-made products, ready to eat products, right? Then we have the milk and milk products, which is the second highest consumed product, and similarly the vegetable, egg, fish, cereals, edible oils, fruits and other food items are there. So what actually is the basket of this CPI which we were talking about? In this, the major share is obviously the food and beverages. Then we have the housing also. Then we have the fuel and the light, clothing and the footwear, and the pan and the tobacco intoxicants. And then we have the miscellaneous sections under this basket. And based on the inflation that is there in these products, we get the CPI or the consumer price index, which tracks the change in the retail prices of the goods and services which households purchases for their daily consumption. And it is calculated based on a base year 2012, that I was saying that it is calculated in real terms. And this is released by NSO, that is National Statistical Office of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Similarly, we have this wholesale price index, which represents the price of goods at a wholesale stage, means goods that are sold in bulk and traded between organization instead of consumers. Base year for this wholesale price index is 2011-12, and it is released by Office of Economic Advisor under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Our next topic is that current account deficit eased in Q2 but may double in Q3. This particular topic has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 9, and this is related to GS paper 3, growth and development. So the context is that India's current account deficit for the July to September period, or Q2 of 24-25, moderated marginally to $11.2 billion or 1.2% of GDP from 11.3% billion or 1.3% of GDP a year ago. And as per this balance of payment data released by the Reserve Bank of India on Friday, the merchandise trade deficit increased to $75.3 billion from $64.5 billion in Q2 of 23-24, while net services receipt rose to $44 billion from $39.9 billion a year ago. So we have to now understand all the things which is given in this article. First is, what is BOP, or the balance of payment? It is a record of all the transactions that is happening between a country and the rest of the world over a specific period. It has two components. One is the current account and second is the capital account. Current account consists of various components like trade in visibles, means trade in goods, etc. Then trade in invisibles, means the trade that is happening in services. Also then we have the unilateral transfers like gifts, remittances, etc. that are coming. Then under the capital account, it records all the transactions that causes a change in the asset or the liabilities of the government. For example, if you look into the components of the capital account, they are the investments that are coming in the economy, that like the foreign direct investment or the portfolio investment, the loans and borrowings that has been taken from the territory outside India, whether it is multilateral bank or any other foreign bank, the banking capital transactions, all that is happening, that will be part of the capital account, because this will be impacting the asset and liabilities. If you have a confusion that whether this particular component will be part of capital account or current account, just see that whether that is impacting the asset or and liabilities of the government or not. If that is impacting, that will be part of the capital account. Now what we have seen, that we are having the current account deficit. What does it mean? Let's try to understand with a very basic example. Let's suppose India exported some products worth 200 rupees, but India also imported goods worth 250 rupees. So here the import is much higher as compared to exports. So we'll have to give 50 rupees from our pocket. But let's suppose India exported 500 rupees worth of the services and India just imported 400 rupees worth of services. Here we are exporting more as compared to import of the services. So here we will have 100 rupees surplus. So if we look into, if we'll add all the components under the current account, that is this minus 50 and 100, we can come with plus 50. Means here we can say we are having the current account surplus. But that is not the case in our economy at present. We are having the current account deficit. Means we are importing more as compared to the exports that is happening in net visibles, invisibles, as well as if we calculate the unilateral transfers also. After adding all that, we are having the current account deficit. Our next topic is that the UPI transactions via prepaid payment instruments on third-party apps gets the RBI note. This particular topic has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 11, and this is related to banking sector and non-banking financial companies. So the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, has decided to allow prepaid instrument holders to make or receive UPI payments through third-party mobile applications, and this will enable the PPI holders to make and receive UPI payments through the mobile application of third-party UPI applications, the RBI said. And why the RBI has taken this decision is to providing more flexibility to holders of PPI such as gift card, metro rail card, and the digital wallets, among others. What is happening? What is PPI or the prepaid payment instruments? These are the payment instruments which are used to purchase goods and services, including transfer of funds, conduct financial transactions, and enable the remittances, leveraging the stored value within or on that instrument. For example, the DMRC metro card that you people have, there is a value that is stored in that metro card itself. We will scan that and you will be able to go through metro itself. Then let's suppose you have the voucher codes of the Myntra or any other such e-commerce website. There is an inherent value that is stored in that. That is the prepaid payment instrument where payment has already been done. Now RBI has decided to these prepaid payment instruments to make or receive payments through the third-party UPI apps. These PPIs can be defined as the closed system, semi-closed system, semi-open system, or payment instruments, open system payment. The closed system, they are generally issued by the business establishment for use at their respective establishment only. For example, DMRC smart cards, you can use that at there itself. You can't scan that and in the airport lounge generally. Okay. Then the semi-closed system, they are redeemable at a group of clearly identified merchant locations establishment with a specific contract with the issuer to accept the payment instrument. For example, there are some or other form of vouchers that is being given by the Blinkit or by the Zepto, etc., which you can redeem at that particular store itself. You cannot redeem at online platform or online website of that particular platform. The semi-open system that can be used for goods and services at any card accepting merchant location, and it does not allow cash withdrawal or redemption. For example, point of sale terminal. For example, you will scan your credit card or debit card and you will be able to avail some form of services, but you cannot withdraw cash from that POS. That is your semi-open system. The open system payment that can be used for purchase of goods and services and also permit the cash withdrawals at ATMs. For example, the debit cards, etc., that we use for withdrawing the cash as well as using at the point of sale machines. If you talk about the UPI, that is Unified Payment Interface, that is an advanced version of immediate payment service. Means here the real-time settlement of funds happen, and it is developed by NPCI, that is an umbrella organization for operating retail payments and settlement systems in India, and it is an initiative of Reserve Bank of India and Indian Banks Association under the provisions of Payments and Settlements Act 2007, and it has been incorporated as a not-for-profit company under the provisions of Companies Act 2013. And this UPI is regulated by the RBI itself, and this UPI was launched on April 11, 2016, and it is designated to enable peer-to-peer interbank transfers as well as through a single two-click factor authentication process. Means if I want to transfer, I can transfer you, you can transfer me. That is the peer-to-peer, means within the individuals. Also peer-to-merchant is also facility available with the UPI. This particular question that was asked in 2017, please comment the answer of this question in the comment box. Our next topic is related to PM Cares Fund. There has been a report in the Indian Express that says that PM Cares Fund received rupees 912 crore contribution in year after the COVID-19 pandemic. And this has appeared on page number 14 of the Indian Express, and this particular topic relates with your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions. So the context is that Prime Minister's Citizen Assistance and Relief in the Emergency Situation Fund, that is abbreviated as PM Cares Fund, received rupees 912 crore in contribution during the financial year 2022-23 as donations continued to pour in even after the COVID pandemic. This PM Cares Fund was actually launched during the COVID-19 to address the widespread issues that has arisen in the healthcare sector, to ensure that proper machineries, proper hospital beds, etc. can be provided. If you will see in the contribution in the fund, okay, that is the voluntary, it was 909.64 in 2022-23 and 2.57 in the from the foreign, and it was highest in the 2020-21 period, that is the peak COVID period and the period in which the PMKS was launched. This was created on 28 March 2020 following this COVID-19 pandemic, and the main aim was to combat and contain the combating and containment and relief efforts against the coronavirus outbreak and similar pandemic situations that might arise in future. And this has been registered as a public charitable trust. Objectives of this is to provide assistance and relief to all the affected persons in event of any calamity, disaster, public health emergency, or any other emergency of any kind that may be either natural or man-made. The creation as well as upgradation of any pharmaceutical facilities, funding a research, creation or upgradation of necessary infrastructure, healthcare support, or any other kind of support that might be needed in future to address any contingency, health-related contingency. In this fund, the contributions are both from the individuals as well as from the organizations, and the contribution is entirely of voluntary contribution. There is no budgetary support from the Government of India. The chairman of this fund is Prime Minister, and then if we talk about the members, the Minister of Home Affairs, Minister of Defense and Minister of Finance are the trustees of this fund. People who are investing in this fund, they can get benefit under the Section 80G of Income Tax Act 1961 for 100% exemptions under this IT Act. Also, this will be considered as the corporate social responsibility expenditure or CSR expenditure under the Companies Act 2013 for whatever the companies who are contributing in this fund. Also, this fund has been provided exemptions under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, and this has ensures that there are foreign contributions also that can be made in this fund. Next topic is related to the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act itself, that government extends the FCRA validity of some of the non-governmental organizations for 3 months, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 6, and this is related to government policies and interventions and non-governmental organization, which is related to your GS paper 2. So Home Ministry on Friday extended this validity of FCRA registration certificates up to 3 months of NGO whose renewal applications are pending till March 31, 2025. Why this Foreign Contribution Regulation Act came? The purpose of this is to regulate the foreign donation to ensure transparency, national security and the accountability. And why, if you look into the historical linkage or historical background of this FCRA, in 1976 during the emergency, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act was enacted due to concerns that independent organizations were funneling money in India from outside the countries, and the goal of law was to ensure that foreign donations to individuals and organizations functioned in accordance with the principles of the sovereign and democratic republic. For example, if there is an NGO which is being funded by any foreign agency or foreign individual, and that NGO is not working for the welfare of the people, that is not with the democratic principles of the India. That is in a way eroding the public trust. So to address that, this FCRA came, and even after this 1976 Act, it has been amended various times, and recently it also got amended. By this amendment, there has been various restrictions, various provisions that has been levied that will be applicable to the NGOs. For example, they have to open a bank account with State Bank of India in New Delhi. They have to also ensure that the a small portion is only being spent on the administrative expenses, etc. Key objectives of this FCRA is to prevent foreign influence on politics, ensure legality of the foreign funding. The registration under the FCRA, organization must register with the Ministry of Home Affairs to receive foreign contributions legally. The eligibility for FCRA registration, organizations must operate for social, educational, religious or the charitable purposes, and if they are working in this domain, they can get the funding. There are some compliance requirements also. For example, the Act mandates annual returns, that every organization which is getting funds, they have to file the annual returns, proper utilization and audited financial statement submission. And there are some prohibited activities under the FCRA. For example, foreign contributions cannot be used for political activities or unlawful purposes. This was all from today's Analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying and wish you a very happy new year in advance. May you all clear this exam in the attempt in this new year, which will be starting from 1st January 2025. May you all clear this exam in the first attempt itself. My best wishes are with you. Thank you.